Carlos Nelson with the Kansas City Business Association, and today we have one of the top caterers in the country that caters all around the country. Someone I've known for at least 30, 35 years, and at one time worked with him going to Atlanta when Mary J. Blige and Jodeci and all of them were just coming out. And Jayr, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. How you got in the business of catering, how long. Give them the 411 on yourself.
Well, I started out in the catering business back in the 80s. The very first gig I did was the Jackson Victory Tour, Michael Jackson Family Victory Tour. And that's what started the whole thing. I'm in a business where I started out doing 90% of my shows were urban shows, Black shows. And so in Kansas City, it's kind of split up. It's like the white shows are done by were done by a couple of Deb and Larry Reeves, and then I did all of the urban shows. And then later on in the late 80s, early 90s, I ventured out and started doing other shows, country shows, but I was based locally. And then I hooked up with Alan Heyman. Alan Heyman was one of the biggest, well, was the biggest Black concert promoter in the United States. And I hooked up with him, and that's how I got tied into the urban concert circuit. Then later on, I decided to pull out and just do shows locally in Kansas City. And then I hooked up with companies like Live Nation, AEG, and started doing stuff for them. And so over the last maybe 12 years, I have been the in-house caterer for the Midland Theater. So I was the only caterer that could go into the Midland Theater and do shows. But now I'm retired, and I still do a few shows because some of the artists won't let you quit. So that's my story.
No, that's not your story. I don't know who you're talking to. As I said, I've known you for 35 years. I didn't ask you about them shows. I asked you, how did you start your business and your love really for doing that? We talked off camera about what it took to build that business and how many people that have worked for you that for whatever reason they're no longer there. And I know I've known you since you were in the restaurant business, not the catering business per se.
Yeah,
I wanted you to talk about that.
Yeah, well, we started a little wing joint. We were the only ones selling wings in Kansas City. We started a little wing joint back in the early 80s called Wings and Things on 18th in Brooklyn. And V. Weiser, Dixon, Ron Logan, and myself, we started that business. And that's what really pushed me into the concert business. I had some clients that came in and asked me to do some events for them. Clinton Adams was the I think he was the commissioner for the sports authority, for Kansas City Sports Authority. So he would have me come and do cater events for him in the councilman's suite at the Chiefs games or the Royals games. And so with that, I started doing concerts. And that's really how I got my start in the concert business. That's how I got into the Jackson Victory Tour, and started doing the arena stuff, the arena and theater thing. So, but yeah, we
Yeah.
started that business back in the 80s. When I was young, I was just out of high school. I was about 18, 19 years old at the time when we were doing that. So,
Yeah, I know. That's how I got in the concert business, doing a little promoting with Twin A Productions,
yeah,
and
those guys were later on. You know what I
right.
mean?
But I'm saying that's how I got in to even be interested in
Yeah,
it. Was going to Atlanta with you, and
yeah.
Al Heyman, I think, was the one that uh, did that concert.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I mean, it was only a few. It was only a few urban promoters that did the urban shows. Like that show that we did, it was a huge, huge show. It was a huge show. I mean, it was like Jodeci. I mean, it was during the early '90s when Boyz II Men, Bobby Brown, New Edition, Jodeci, all those guys were hot. You know,
they were
everybody was
just
about it.
hot. They were just really coming out.
Yeah, they were coming out, but I mean, it was a part of that urban circuit. These
Right.
were the new guys that were doing things, and they were hot. They were the hot ticket out there because everybody else was kind of moving out outside of, the Frankie Beverleys and, Frankie Beverly at one time, they commanded, you know, the that big ticket urban concert market. But the Jodeci's and Mary J. Blige, these guys came in, with their new jack, and they were like super hot, and they were outselling everybody, which pushed out the Frankie Beverleys and Commodores and all these other guys. They just pushed them out of the way, you
Hey
know.
Jr., you know what the memorable thing on when I was down in Atlanta with you? Uh, they didn't have no Krispy Kreme here, and when we hit
Right.
Atlanta,
Yeah.
you was like, "We got to go get Krispy Kreme."
Yeah. 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 The Krispy Kreme dream, man. Yeah, I loved Krispy Kreme at the time, and the only place I knew to get it was in the South. You know what I mean? So that was like one of the number one stops when we went to Atlanta, and yeah, it was a cool event, man. You
What
know.
what is your most memorable event? Give me your top. Give me your top three events with artists that you really enjoyed. Not just working, that you enjoyed working. You enjoyed the personalities and what have you.
Well, there's been a bunch of memorable moments, good and bad. You know what I mean? But I really dug the Prince stuff that I did, all the Prince gigs that I did, because the funny thing was, when you go into the Prince organization, it's like the management, they always tell you, when the artist or when Prince comes into the building, we don't want anybody talking to Prince. Don't look at him, don't talk to him. And so one of the last shows that I did with Prince, um, they had a production meeting, told us what we could do and what we couldn't do. And so Prince's limo pulls into the building, and then there was a ramp that they were having a security meeting on. So he was walking up the ramp, and I was walking down the ramp, and I was like, oh, damn. And so I'm walking past him, and once we got level to each other, I just kind of looked the other way, and he said, "What's up?" And I was like, "What's up, man?" So that was a cool, memorable moment. He was really a cool cat, man.
Give us
And then there
another.
was a time. There was a time when I was doing a show with Bobby Womack, and Bobby Womack pulled a gun on me. He pulled a gun on me. So it's been all kinds of moments where they were really cool. Like the artist Phyllis Hyman, she was like one of the meanest ladies that I ever met in my life, but she was like really nice to me. But everybody else, her band, all the production people, she was like super, super evil to them, man. She treated
James
them.
Brown incarnate.
I, James Brown was cool. He was really a cool person, man. He was a cool person. I did a few shows with James Brown. I did about 4 shows with James Brown. And I remember one that I did at Municipal Auditorium for 20 ragtime. James Brown wouldn't talk to anybody. He wouldn't talk to, like, KPRS was there. KPR, Mike Carter, all those guys were there, and everybody was there waiting to meet James Brown, and he wouldn't meet anybody. And this was right after he got out of jail, and he was like, I guess he was just trying to stay out of trouble and stay away from people. But when James's set came on, when the band was on stage and he was getting ready to come out, I was backstage by James Brown with James Brown by myself. I was the only one back there, and he walked up to me and he grabbed my hand with both hands and shook my hand. He was just like the super coolest, really cool guy. It's been always like, to me, it's always been people that I would think that weren't going to be like nice or cool, and they were really cool. And then the people that you thought were going to be okay, they were like real, buttholes about stuff. So, you can't call it. But for the most part, all of the urban shows that I've done, all of the shows that I've done, people have been like super duper nice. And I mean, dead or alive, I fed almost every artist out there. You name it, I fed them. They all had my food. From a little old guy from Kansas City, here I am. I'm from 30th Street, man. You know what I mean? I'm still here.
Hold it. And as I said, we go back, and at different times when this was all said and done and everybody left, you call me, hey Nelson, come pick this stuff up. You got
Oh
something
yeah.
going
Oh yeah,
here.
we always had
Yeah.
leftovers, and they were incredible leftovers, man. It was incredible food, steak, shrimp, whatever these guys liked or they didn't want to take with them. We had awesome food, and then there was little organizations that would like take, like show food. Like after a show was over, they knew that the concert personnel would have all this food left over, and you could donate it to them, and they would give it to homeless people and stuff like that. So it was always like some super cool organizations. But these guys on the road, they eat very, very well. They eat very, very well, and they spend a lot of money on meals because when you talk about backstage concert business, nobody really can conceptualize it. When I tell them that I feed artists, they can't really figure it out. And what we do is we go in and we feed them 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then we do dressing rooms, and then we do bus catering at the end of the night because they want to take food on the bus with them at the end of the night. So usually have runners that'll run out and buy whatever they like. Like we'll get some stuff from Gates or whatever. And they do that in every city. But, normally huge tours, they carry personnel from 40 people to 100, sometimes 200 people. Because I've done the Eagles before, and we fed up to 200 people at a time, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And uh, you know, sometimes the artists don't eat with the crew. Sometimes we have to do 2 setups. We'll do setups in the dressing room for the artists, and then we'll feed the crew out in an open catering area. And then, some of the shows have been so big, like I was on the entire Boys to Men tour where we did pre-rigs. Like we would do a show and I'd leave my crew in one city and I'd have to go to another city with the crew was set up so we could be ready for them the next day. And sometimes the tours would be so huge that, I mean, I didn't get sleep. I went all over the world, some places out of the country that I went to England, Paris, and I tell people I went there, but I was working so much, I never got to go and sightsee. Like, the boys could go out, sightsee, and do all they want to do. But if I had downtime, I'm in the hotel sleeping, or I'm
Yeah.
traveling to the next gig to the next gig to make sure that everything is up and ready to roll when they pull in. Because if they pull in at 4 o'clock, I gotta have that breakfast up at 6 o'clock, ready for them to eat. Because some of these buildings, most of the buildings are union buildings, and they have union staff, and these guys gotta eat when it's time for them to eat. Like when they say 6 o'clock is mealtime, that food better be up and ready at 6 o'clock.
So tell me this. Tell our audience before we close out. What have you been doing in your retirement? Are you semi-retired or are you all the way retired?
I'm all the way retired. I mean, I'm not doing any shows for anybody. I do have a couple of clients that ask me to come in and do it. I have some friends out. I've made friends with a lot of the artists and they want my food. And if they come through Kansas City and they want me to do the gig, I'll do it. Like I got a gig coming up here in about a month or so. I have a comedy show with some more and all those guys. I do their stuff. I'll probably do their stuff until I can't do it anymore. You know what I mean? Essence Music Fest. I meal managed for the Essence Music Fest for 10 years. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there's some things that I choose to do. I don't think I'll ever be contracted to do like my gig with AG. I love doing what I do. I love feeding the artists. I love doing it. But, you know, just like anything else, sports, the business will wear you out. It'll wear you out.
I
And
know
that's what it
mine
did.
wears me out,
That's what it did to me. It wore me out. You know what I mean? So I
but when you
enjoy
love it,
I enjoy waking
it's,
up. I
it,
still wake
it
up
has a
early.
different flavor.
Yeah, I still wake up early, man. I water my grass, water my flowers. I go have lunch with somebody pretty, you know.
Well,
That's what
hey,
I do,
Jr.
man. Yeah.
I'm still in both our partners, Jim Watts. I'm still in his closing. Uh, do you have anything to say before we close out to the public?
Well, hey, man. I mean, it's a big world out there. It's a big world for small people out there. Anybody could get in it. Like I said, I'm just a little old guy from 30th Street in Kansas City who's had an opportunity to be all over the world and all over the world with huge artists, get a chance to know them, travel with them,
What would you
make
say
money
to
with them.
our young our young population that are interested in restauranteering and pursuing a career in
Well,
food
um,
industry?
the first thing is to work hard at your craft. But the second thing is to understand the business part of it. Because the business part is the most important part of it. Everybody sees what I do and they think it's glamorous, and it really isn't glamorous. It only looks that way because you out here, they think you with all the celebrities. And yeah, that's cool, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And I work very, very hard.
I
Work
know I
harder
was
than
dog
anybody out
dead
there.
tired when you dropped me off after that Atlanta trip.
Yeah. And that was small. You know what I mean? I was small. You get on one of these big shows and you'll never see sleep. You'll never see rest. You just gotta love what you do. If you love what you do, then it isn't really a job. Like this wasn't a job to me because I enjoy what I did. I love the cooking part of it. I love the creating part of it. I love that the people depended on me to make this thing happen. Because I used to get these little meal tickets because sometimes you have to pass out meal tickets. You have so many people and you can't distinguish who's who. And so the people that are supposed to eat, sometimes they wouldn't eat because there were people that would come in and eat and they weren't supposed to eat. So you had to come up with some type of system in order to make sure that the right people ate. So the production companies would make these meal tickets and they would pass them out to everybody that's supposed to eat. And we wouldn't allow anybody to grab a plate, a fork, or nothing unless they had that meal ticket. It was mandatory. And so the meal ticket would say, no catering, no show. I really didn't understand it. And so catering was like as big a part as the sound system there. If the sound system wasn't there, then there wouldn't be a show. So they were telling me that if there's no catering, there's no show. So I thought that was like a cool thing. So whenever I did meal tickets from that point on, I would always print on there, no meal, no show.
That's
So
a
closing
perfect
out. Yeah,
to close out on.
yeah,
And
yeah.
as I said, I partnered James Watts and and Watts always
I know Jim
closes.
Watts.
Yeah, Watts always closes the show. We're on the Kansas City Business Association show, but on his What's Up Kansas City show, he's co-founder
Right,
of What's Up Kansas City. He always
right.
closes with this. It was a plum pleasing pleasure having you on the show, JR. So I like to steal his closing, make him mad, and then we go with our normal closing. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good day.
Program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.